Hi everybody. Today I'm going to show you the menu system in Cohler Classical. Cohler Classical has a menu system that is 100% customized for speed and efficiency and ease of use for classical music editing. Everything you need to do is easily findable at the top of the menus, searchable in multiple ways, and totally intuitive. The first thing I like to tell people is all you have to do to find a command is ask yourself one question. What is it I'm trying to do? When you're editing classical music, you're trying to do one of a few things. One is you're either editing. All the editing commands are going to be in the edit menu. If you're trying to change the view, namely what you're seeing on the screen, either making it bigger or smaller, wider, narrower, taller, whatever, that's going to be under the view menu because you're changing the view. If you're doing something with markers, either adding them or deleting them or saving them, that's going to be under the marker menu. If you're doing something that has anything to do with playback or recording, it's under the play record menu. We'll get to all of these. I'm going to skip over the track menu for the moment. That one you don't use as often. It's usually used just at project setup time. So let's skip that for the moment. The options menu is where all your basic settings are and all of your basic setup parameters. So if it has something to do with setting a parameter or setting up the project or licensing of the software or special things like restarting and things like that, that's all under the options menu. And if it has something to do with moving around in the project as opposed to changing the view, moving around means moving your cursor to different places. So you're going to the end, the beginning, between track groups, you're going between fades, etc. Anything about moving around, that's called navigation. And all of that is under the navigation menu. And finally, the automation menu has all the commands that have anything to do with setting up automation, either adding points, adding automation tracks, deleting them, moving them around. That's all under automation. The window menu is a menu that just shows you all your current top-level open windows. And the help menu is the standard Reaper help menu, which can be very useful, especially on the Mac, for finding things. One of the great features of the help menu on the Mac, although Windows doesn't have this, is you can type into this search box any word and it'll find all the commands that have that word in your menus. So if I type in the word S-D, which is what's used in the menus for source destination things, you can immediately see there's the source destination edit and crossfade menu, etc. Set the source destination source. So that's available on the Mac only. In any case, all you need to do is ask yourself one question and you can immediately find what you're looking for. Furthermore, all of the most important commands are available in this button bar right at the top center of your screen. And once you've asked yourself the question, 99% of the time the command you're looking for is at the top of the menu. So I'm going to start with the file menu. I skipped over that. Obviously in the file menu you're going to have all your file associated. Opening your project up, saving it, opening a template, loading in your audio files, etc. That's all under the file menu, or at the end, rendering, saving out, exporting files. That's all under the file menu. So let's look at the file menu first. Top section is about projects. So you can make a new project, open an existing one, save a project, close projects, or restore a backup. If we go to new, there's 3 new things you can create. You either create a new project, which creates a new project within a window. You can create a new tab within a window that allows you to put a new project in multiple tabs. You can create a whole new instance of Cohler Classical. So that's the new commands. Then you have the open commands. Open an existing project, open an existing project list. That'll open several at once into several tabs. Open a template, related projects, a recent project list, and another command for grabbing a template from the template directory all in one click. For save, you save a project, project as template, a copy of the project, a new version, project list, and all projects, and close this project, all except the current. Very simple stuff. Restore backup is a time machine-like command that allows you to go back to any snapshot in the past. There's your command for loading all of your audio files in one click, for deleting items and files, consolidate, render, and export, all in the file command. So that's your file menu. We get to the edit menu. The first thing there is source destination edit crossfade. This is basically one command, and it has 6 different forms of the same command. All of these commands do a source destination edit. The question is where do you leave the cursor afterwards, and whether or not you leave the in and out point set. And so the first one is the most commonly used one. That does the edit and leaves the in and out point set right where the edit was done. In fact, let me show you that. I'll load up a project here. Okay. So, here you've got your source groups and destination group. I'll just do a quick edit here. I'm going to set an in point here, an out point here. I'll set an in point here in this destination, out point here. And now I'm going to do edit. And if I do this first command, it does the edit and it leaves the in and out point set at the 2 edges of the edit. So that's that version. I can undo that. The second version does the same thing but deletes the in and out points. So that does the edit, but now you'll see there's no in and out point, but the cursor is sitting at the first edit. Okay, so each of those commands is a different form depending on what it does after it does the edit. This selects the source destination source. These are all your delete commands. Again, you can ripple and crossfade, and enter the fade, no ripple, etc. These are all your copy commands, your paste commands, your split commands, and these are the other edits for doing noise, fade in, fade out, gain changes, rate changes, and pitch changes. Now we get down to the crossfade section. These are all the keystrokes for editing crossfades. Many of these commands can be done visually with click drag, but they can also be done with keystrokes. So here's how to enter a fade. The basic enter a fade is you put your cursor near a fade and hit the letter F. And now I'm in the fade. Now I can do all my edits. Escape key takes you out of that mode. And all of these various keystrokes allow you to change the length and position, contents, curve shape, etc. All of which can also be done with click drag, and you can go watch the crossfade video about that. These are all the commands for auditioning and then exiting the crossfade. Also under edit menu is the traditional location where applications have their preferences and project settings. So those are right here. This preferences is the standard Reaper preferences and Reaper project settings, and the import and export configuration commands of Reaper. These are not used very often. But down here we have the search commands for finding markers, finding tracks, finding audio in the source groups, and other commands. And then the history, undo, redo, history. So that's your edit menu. The view menu, as I said, was for changing views. One of the most useful things is the first command here, zoom all. So all the zoom commands, whether you're zooming to everything, vertical, horizontal, or waveform, it's all right at the top. All says, let me see everything I've got in my project. So with that one command, the letter A, or I'll just click here, I quickly see all my takes, beginning to end, top to bottom. So that way, in case if I'm zoomed in, sometimes I forget what's off screen. This command reminds me. So I can immediately zoom to everything. Another quick zoom that's very important is previous zoom scroll. So once you've zoomed one place, you often want to immediately go back. So if I hit P, it brings me back to the exact place and zoom and scroll where I was before. And if I do Shift P, I can go forward. So I can go backwards, forwards, etc. So then all the vertical commands are here. You can zoom all the tracks larger and smaller, selected one larger and smaller. The command I like the most is this one, which sets to n tracks with a large destination. That's what you're seeing now. This sets to n equal tracks. So one click, you can set 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if I want only 5 tracks displaying, do that command. Now I got 5. And if I do the n tracks large destination, it keeps 5 tracks on the screen, but makes the destination larger. You can always still scroll up and down with next screen, page up, page down. The thing that determines how much larger the destination is than the others when you use that command vertical n tracks large destination. The size of the destination relative to the other tracks is determined by the options menu. Go to options, general, and that second parameter, first group height factor, by default that's set to 3. You can make it whatever you want. So I usually like to have, right now we're showing 5 tracks in the window and with a factor of 3. I usually like to show all 10 track groups with a factor of 3. Click OK. Now we got 10 track groups showing, height factor of 3 on the first one. So those are all your vertical zooming commands. Horizontal zooming commands, there are many. You can zoom in and out 5x, default, maximum. If you do the maximum command, it brings you instantly right down to the sample level. So if I do that, now we actually see the individual samples. Occasionally you want to do that. And if I want to get back to where I was, I hit P, and now I'm back to where I started. So all the horizontal zooms are there. Sometimes you want to make the waveform itself bigger or smaller. So this doesn't change your horizontal or vertical zoom of the tracks, but changes the waveform itself. So if I make it bigger, you see all the waveforms got bigger. And if I zoom it smaller, the waveforms got smaller. You can do it a lot or a little. So I can do it a little bit at a time, or I can do it a lot at a time. What's the command for a lot? Vertical waveform bigger is control command, up and down arrow. So that does a lot up, a lot down, or a little bit up, a little bit down. And eventually it gets to a certain minimum where it won't go any further. So that's all your zoom commands right there at the top. Previous is the P. Cursor is if you quickly need to get the cursor in the center of the screen, especially if it's gone off screen. Or get it in the center of screen and go to the default zoom level, which you can set. So right now, if I hit this, it will put the cursor in the center and zoom to my default zoom level, which you can set. Then you have a bunch of windows, dockers. All this stuff is more generic Reaper stuff. The action list, the mixer, the take number window, the time code window, etc. So that's all the view stuff. Now we go to markers. There's basically 3 sections at the top to set the markers, to nudge certain markers. Basically, there's some commands for nudging the in and out, and then deleting markers. In Cohler Classical, there's 3 basic types. There's track group markers, there's project markers, and there's take markers. So, and the in and out are a special kind of track group marker, so they get their own section. And then there's also a thing called the time selection, which is the standard Reaper time selection you can get by dragging in the ruler, or control key dragging over items. Either way, that's the time selection. So to set any of these things, and then there's CD markers, which is a special kind of track group marker. There's your take markers, CD markers, time selection settings, project marker settings, track group marker settings, and in-out marker settings. All those commands to nudge those left or right a little or more, and commands to delete any one or all of those. Then there's some special commands for moving the markers around, converting markers into take markers, saving and loading either regular markers or CD markers, and looking at the marker list. So all the marker commands in the markers menu. The play record menu now gives you everything you need to know about playing or recording audio. So the first thing is playback, stop, play, stop, play from the in, play from here, play from there, pause, etc. All there. Your speeds, your scrolling, clearing of the peak meters is in this menu as well, because you often want to do that when you're recording or setting up to record. And now all of the recording stuff is here. The first thing is setting up your inputs. So the commands for that are in one menu. Checking off whether or not you want to have a backup recording. Checking off whether or not you want to allow overlapping items when you record, and toggling your monitor. Once you got all those things ready to go, you arm with one click using record arm, and you record. You can update the take number if you want to, although it updates automatically. And then the other thing in the play record menu is auditioning, which is another kind of playback. So these are all the commands for auditioning points in the source or destination group with a single click. And it uses your in and out points as reference points for that. And there's commands for doing that while outside of fade edit mode, and commands for doing it while inside of fade edit mode. In the track menu, the most important thing when you're setting up projects is the create track command, or create folder track, or create send track, or create send track for children. Just these top four. The rest of this you'll likely almost never use. The options menu now has all of the basic options. So the general options is this screen, has about 13 or 14 settings. All of these you can change and save it as your own set of defaults. Then you go to the nudge settings. That's for how much it's going to nudge various things when you nudge them using the nudge commands. This sets your default settings for how big the screen zooms in both vertically and horizontally when you're going into fade edit mode. So the default settings for that, if I go into fade edit mode, it zooms in so the crossfade is about that big, occupies about half of your viewing area, and looks like that. But all of those parameters you can change. If you want it to fill the full screen, you can do that. If you want the fade to occupy a larger percentage of the screen, you can do that. And once you're in there, of course, you can change the zoom levels and move around. So, okay, so now these are various toggles for other settings. These are the paths of your load, where you're loading files in from, where you're recording to, and where you're recording backup if you're doing backup recording. Your time code settings for the time code window over here, take number window, color defaults, track heights. Here's where you can save your own set of defaults. Once you've customized the settings the way you like them, you can save that out. Then all future projects will be created according to your defaults. If you ever need to get back to the Cohler classical factory defaults, you can reset that as well. And each project, the settings get saved with the project as well. So you have at least 3 levels of settings. You have what's in the project. You can always reset to your customized set of system defaults, and you can also reset back to the Cohler classical factory defaults. These commands are used for initial setup of your project, updating your project, metadata, the licensing of Cohler Classical is all here, checking for updates, which is done automatically, and then some special commands down here. And now your navigation commands. First, the commands for navigating between the track groups, next, previous, destination, source. So those are commands like go to the next track group, go to the previous track group, go to the first source, go to the fifth source, etc. Those are all commands that are in the menus there. Then instead of navigating track groups, you can navigate tracks, next, previous, selecting or not selecting. And you can go all tracks or just media tracks. Because once you've set up a project, you actually have media tracks and folder tracks. So you can see here the media tracks are the ones that have WAV files in them. But this track here, for example, is a folder track. So these commands allow you to navigate track by track, as I'm doing now. Or if you simply want to only go to the media tracks, you can do that as well using the media track navigation, which is control option up and down arrow. So that will take me to the next media track, skipping over any folder tracks automatically. And these commands all work within each group, and they rotate around in a circle if you go past the end. So that allows you to navigate tracks with single clicks. Then you can scroll left and right the screen. This could have been in the view menu. I put it here for now in the navigation menu, but this allows you to scroll the screen left or right with the arrow keys. Now this is navigating with the cursor. You can either go directly to a time code, you can go to a marker, to an edit, an item, a crossfade, a time selection point, an envelope point. Any of those things, there are keystroke available commands to jump directly to them. So as I navigate in Cohler Classical, I can go directly to markers, to edits, to end of track, beginning of track, into the middle of fades, or to specific markers, all with single clicks and all instantly. So very easy to navigate to points, to important points on the screen. This is going to different fades. Then you have the commands for selecting items. Selecting the current, selecting in the time selection, all the ones in the group, all the items, etc. You can also toggle ones on and off if you have a non-contiguous selection that you want. So let's say you want to select this, and you want to select all the way over to here, but you don't want this item in the middle. You put your mouse over it and you do Command semicolon. Now that one's unselected. So you can do non-contiguous selection that way. And finally, in the navigation menu, we have show hide. So there are various things that you can show hide with a click. Show hide the media tracks, the folder tracks, the automation tracks. You can collapse everything, collapse the source groups, and you can show and hide children in the mixer, which I'll show you. So show hide the media tracks is one that you often do. So those are your tracks that you're recording audio into. If I also want to see the folder tracks, I can show hide those. If I want to see just the tracks that have automation, I can show hide those. So that's just showing tracks that have automation on them. So those are all available instantaneously with a click. And if you're in the mixer, there are special commands there for immediately, if I double click, shift double click on this, it immediately opens up all of the children to their maximal level. If I shift double click again, it closes all of them. If I simply double click on one folder, it just shows you the children of that folder and closes that. But when I shift double click, it shows me the children of all the children. So if I shift double click here, shift double click here, it goes all the way to the bottom level of the hierarchy. So let's say I close this up and close that up, but I shift double click here. It again, so you can open and close your entire thing in one key, one double click. Very easy to find things that way. So that's your navigation, and there's your automation commands. Add a volume envelope, delete envelopes, add points, move them up and down, move the points, etc. And as I showed you on the Mac, there's the very useful one under the help menu. Search, you just type a word in the search box and you can find things. If you're forgetting where the envelope commands are, type the word envelope. And you'll immediately see there's a whole bunch of commands here. Add a volume envelope, and it shows you exactly where it is. Delete an envelope, next envelope, previous envelope, selected envelope, etc. That feature, unfortunately, is not available on Windows. Everything else that I've shown you here is exactly the same whether you're on Windows or Mac, and the keystrokes are all in the menu, and it's the same keystrokes whether you're on Windows or Mac. So you can go back and forth between Windows and Mac very easily. The only thing you have to remember is the Option key on Mac, which is also called Alt, is the Alt key on Windows. The Control key on Mac becomes the Windows key on Windows, and the Command key on Mac becomes the Control key on Windows. But depending on what keyboard you have on your Windows, those are usually in the same position. So it's almost identical using the two machines. Sometimes the Control and Windows key are swapped on Windows, and you just have to remember that those two are in opposite positions. But other than that, all the keystrokes are exactly the same, and they're all displayed in the menu for you. So when you're on Mac, you'll see the Mac keystrokes. When you're on Windows, you'll see the Windows keystrokes, but they're the same keystrokes. So that's all there is to menus in Cohler Classical. You ask yourself one question: what am I trying to do? And you can immediately find the command you're looking for. Before I finish here, I mentioned the menu bar at the top. So here we have the most important commands. This is your save project command. This is open and close your action list. This is open and close your mixer. This is hide and unhide your time code in the upper left corner there. This is hide and unhide your take window. See it in the lower right there. This is a button for locking and unlocking fade linkage, locking and unlocking track group dragging. These ones in the middle are probably your most important. That's for setting an in point, setting an out point, doing a source destination edit. So anytime I want to set an in point, I can do it with those buttons. Once I remember the keystroke, it's very easy. In point is left bracket, out point is right bracket, and source destination edit is Option Command F1. But you can also do it with buttons at first. This is for quick navigation, end of track, previous edit point or mark, next edit point or mark, end of track. And then these are your transport buttons. Arm for record, horizontal scroll as it's playing, stop, play, pause, and record. Everything you need to do in Cohler Classical is one click away.